Mr. DJ.
Hey, check this out. We got a great show coming your way.
From the ECSI Sports Studios, it's the Midday Market Report with Jeff Dawson.
Hey sports fans, are you ready for an exhilarating gaming experience? Introducing VIPclub.lv, your ultimate online sportsbook and casino. VIPclub.lv offers a vast selection of sports, from football and basketball to tennis and baseball. Bet on your favorite teams and enjoy the thrill of the game. But that's not all. Our state-of-the-art online casino offers a dazzling array of games, including slots, blackjack, roulette, and live dealer tables. Win big with their fantastic promotions, rewards, and exclusive offers. Join VIPclub.lv today and get a generous 200% match welcome bonus to start your winning streak. Bet it, win it, and cash it at VIPclub.lv. Visit VIPclub.lv now and play responsibly. VIPclub.lv, your sportsbook and casino extravaganza. Must be 21 or older to play. Please gamble responsibly. Visit gambleware.org for help.
Good afternoon, sports fans from all around the globe. I am the host, Jeff Dawson, East Coast Sports Investors, and this is our weekly 3 Men in a Box Sweet 16 baseball, the Super Regionals. As I am looking to my left, Virginia 4, Duke 3, and we are top of the 8th, it looks like. So we're just starting out, but these two guys are the experts, Mr. Quentin Mills, Mr. Matt Grissom, as you've been following both on Twitter, VSiN, and wherever else. These guys have been on the last few weeks. They've been crushing it, and we're blessed and honored to have these two in our studios to talk some college baseball. We'll talk a little about what happened last weekend, maybe a surprise or two, and have everyone to get us ready for the Super Regionals as they get ready for the big dance next weekend. So without further ado, let's bring them both in, Mr. Quentin Mills and Matt Grissom. Gentlemen, what is happening?
Well, just live sweating this over in the Virginia game, which it's dead. So I'll go ahead and say the eulogy, the over 11.5 is dead.
I was a little wary on it. You had two good pitchers with 2 ERAs, but you had some numbers to back it up from last series. So you got to go with your gut, right? You're not going to hit every pick. Nobody hits 100%. So
yeah, I think I was counting on Virginia to stay a little hotter than what they've been. Their bats just haven't looked too impressive, but their first pitch swinging every time. So like a lot of those one-pitch flyouts to start off an inning, those are killers.
They've left 3 or 4 guys on second and third base. So the guys have been in scoring position. They're, like you said, they're just not capitalizing with early swings, routine pop flies, not really extending the pitchers and getting a good pitch. But they're winning, so we got to at least ride with that.
Yeah, for sure.
You don't want the 4 to... You don't want the 4-4 and go to extras?
That is not ideal. We're both sitting on future. So.
Yeah, because then I'd probably lose both of them. I'm not going to get greedy. Yeah. Just stick with.
We've got some better looking bets down the road on this team. So if Matt has to sacrifice his over, then we do it for a good cause.
Q, go back last weekend. It's been a week since we have done this show. Anything surprise you over the weekend? Any teams really let you down? What'd you see?
Vanderbilt. I think they let not only me, but Matt and probably everybody east of Nashville or south of Nashville down. I think everybody thought they had the easiest, one of the, if not the easiest region. And they just, I don't know what happened. I mean, I know what happened. Their bats kind of went back to what they were all season. But, Tim Corbin is a legendary coach. He had them swinging really well in the SEC tournament, which you try to give him benefit of the doubt and say, okay, he's got this team back to where they should be. at the right time. Teams can get hot. Obviously, we saw Ole Miss do it last year, so maybe they're kind of on this trend. Pitching was never an issue, and they get a host spot. Everything looks good, easy money, and it was not easy money. I mean, losing 2-1 to Xavier. Jeff, you're familiar with Xavier. I mean, realistically, Xavier had no business winning the Big East tournament. UConn let that slip. And here we are. Xavier obviously took advantage of a anemic Vanderbilt offense and played for the regional final. Now, obviously, we know Oregon advanced there with good ease with it. So they surprised me. I think the other team that surprised me was probably the way Arkansas lost. I think Matt and I were pretty candid on saying that TCU, had the ability to win that region. But, I mean, I don't think anybody expected those two outcomes. So that was a little surprising. And then I think Texas, in a positive surprise, surprised us with the bats, a team that had decent pitching all year. They just had no run support for the pitchers, losing a lot of close games, a lot of low scoring games. They woke up in Coral Gables. They really swung the bats well. They were scoring 8 to 10 runs a game, which is very unusual for that team this year, consistently, against non-mid majors. It'll be interesting to see with them traveling to Stanford this weekend, where the ball was flying out of the park with any pop fly that hit over the weekend. So it'll be interesting to see if Texas can keep those bats hot, because if they can, they have the pitching to get past Stanford with relative ease, in my opinion. It's just, like I said, whether the bats can kind of stay in stride.
Matt, when Q started, he talked about Vanderbilt, and something that he said kind of struck me. Them hosting. I'm not saying they didn't deserve it. My question to you, Matt, would be the fact that they were hosting, does that almost like, I'm not saying that they let down, obviously, but is that almost like a comfort, like, hey, guys, we're hosting. It's our home park. Here's our fans. And did you see any of that lack of urgency with Vanderbilt?
I think, like Q said, we pinned this Vanderbilt team for what they were. Their strength was pitching, not in hitting. They weren't a very good hitting team. And then they started clicking, I guess, around the Arkansas series to close it out. And then you saw them win the SEC tournament. So I felt like maybe they had turned a corner. They were playing at home. This should have been a 3-0 sweep for Vanderbilt, quite frankly, with who was matched up in their regional. But again, that lack of offensive production reared its ugly head again. I mean, you can't lose to Xavier 2-1 as an SEC home team. I mean, that's inexcusable. And Arkansas got beat at home 20-5. That's inexcusable. Like, you're a host. You've played the gauntlet schedule all season long. You can't let a team come in and just dominate you like that. I mean, that's embarrassing, in my opinion. So I do. Maybe they both, Arkansas and Vanderbilt, you could lump them together, and maybe they got cocky, thought, we're playing at home. We've got a lesser competition coming in, and we could just show up and we'll win. And as we saw, that it doesn't happen that way.
The UConn Huskies, may they rest in peace. I knew once they lost the first game, they were in for it. And then Sunday, of course, I was sending some direct messages to Matt, and you were on a little suicide alert with the Florida matchup. And, again, the UConn getting into that losers bracket, they just don't have the depth and the length of pitching to match, obviously, the juggernauts of the SEC and so forth. I wasn't surprised. And then I think I even said to Matt, once I think they hung the starter out a little too long to dry. And I was literally typing a tweet to say, hey, coach, it's time. And he took that line shot right up the middle, right off his thigh. And I was like, OMG, I deleted it. I didn't get the tweet out in time. But you talk about Xavier. I mean, the Big East, we talked all year. It's not the greatest baseball. It's not basketball, put it that way. Surprised, Matt? I mean, with Xavier last weekend?
How can you not be? I mean, the team, they won the Big East. So that's why they were an automatic qualifier in the tournament. They were 30, 39 and 24 or 25 on the year. This team probably wasn't going to make the postseason, and they won the Big East and got there. So, yeah, I mean, I'm very surprised that it was Xavier that knocked off Vanderbilt, which Oregon did too, but Xavier beat Vandy twice, I'm pretty sure. So, and now it sets up with this Oregon Super Regional, which we'll get into, but it's just crazy how baseball sometimes goes. I mean, who would have thought Oral Roberts in Oregon would have been playing in a Super Regional in Eugene just a week ago? I mean, it's crazy how it all shaked out, but I guess that's the beautiful thing about college baseball is it's never over till it's over.
A week is settled. Your second guide is out. As you guys were putting it together, Q, you had a week. You take a look at the first guide. You shake it out. The Sweet 16, the final 16 is standing. As you were putting this thing together, what stuck out? What surprised you?
I think, and I'll kind of let Matt go into it. There was a certain stat that he dropped on VSiN last night that was a major plus unit bet if you kind of blindly went with that theory. I don't know that it surprised me, but I think we've been dead on all year long in what we've been saying. Pitching matters, and the good teams get farther. Yes, in comparison to a main sport with kind of bracket play like basketball, you do have your Cinderella stories. Baseball, I think you're able to win as a Cinderella, whereas the NCAA, it's almost too hard. I mean, talent obviously wins at that level. Baseball, if you really think about it, it's kind of a one-on-one matchup for most of the game, a pitcher versus a batter. It's not like that in college basketball. It's a 5-on-5 game at all times. So I'm not surprised that Oral Roberts is making that run because there's always that one or two teams to this point that does that. And we've seen Coastal win it. We've seen Stony Brook make a final. We've seen Fresno State. But just the sheer numbers, that were so consistent along the year when we're going through these numbers. I mean, you look at Wake Forest, they're virtually number one in every pitching category. That kind of sticks out to me, just because they've played good competition all year. Florida's numbers from what they were on the actual guide to what they were last weekend are totally different. So that surprised me. Florida's pitching, they probably have the best numbers of any team right now based off of last weekend's series matchups. So that kind of surprised me. Just the run support surprised me. I mean, to see Wake Forest's barrage and their plus run differential was astronomical. I think Matt was saying it was like plus 41. I mean, that's unheard of in 3 games for them, so that kind of surprised me, things like that.
Matt?
Yeah, and just to touch on what Q was talking about. So if you just blindly walked into our regional guide and bet the best pitching team, so we've compiled it to put Sierra, XFIP, and ERA into one number so everyone can understand it. It makes it quicker, easier. You would have laid some juice in some, but you also would have cashed on a plus 220, plus 160, plus 150, plus 130. But the gist of it is if you just went with the best pitching team in each regional and put a regional futures ticket out on them, you would have gone 12-4, up 11.4 units. So throw out everything else in the guide. If that trend continues, you could go probably 6-2 just by betting the team with the best pitching staff, which those are Matt, Wake Forest, South Carolina,
not good,
Indiana State, Tennessee, LSU, Oral Roberts, Virginia, and Texas. And yes, Duke just took the lead.
That's
5-4.
5-4. Yeah, 5-4.
And they got a couple guys on, so you're going to end up getting your reverse jinx here. You're going to sneak your over in, and
maybe
now you're going to have to sweep Virginia.
What's your line?
Top of the
11.5.
Let's win 7-5.
Yeah.
Everybody goes on winners.
We're here, and I guess, Matt, since you had the over, I'll end with this question, and then we'll start to dig into the regionals here. As this progresses, you guys are talking, it's the pitching, and the pitching. Under overs of 11.5, 12. So those under over numbers, for the most part, I'm looking at right now. This was a 12, or you got an 11.5. I saw an opening number of 12.5 for South Carolina, Florida. Now down to 11, juiced under. Oral Roberts, Oregon is a flat 12, and then TCU, Indiana State tonight opened at 11.5, down to a 10.5, 11 on DraftKings. These numbers are going to start to creep lower and lower and lower, correct?
I mean, you would think so, but you've got bullpens that just aren't great still. You've got a big enough field where I feel like there's still some spots where you could bet an over. The biggest thing I think is there's no run rule, where in the regular season there was, and I don't think books have fully adjusted to that like we saw in the Arkansas game, which it really wouldn't have mattered at 20-5. They were still going to go over even if they ended it at 7. But like you get into these close matchups like this, 5-4, I mean, who knows? You've got 2 innings left or an inning and a half, and you may see, I don't know, 5-6 more runs late. I mean, it's one of the things with college baseball. It's never over with a metal bat or an aluminum bat. These guys can still hit, and they'll take advantage of, even the best bullpens. It looks like there's a Duke player down, but
Clay got hit in the face.
Yeah, that was rough. But yeah, you get guys out there in the bullpen that throw 94, 95 off an aluminum bat. I mean, you get a couple ducks on the pond, and that game will flip in a hurry.
I flipped over to the Arkansas game. You're talking about, and I thought I was watching a football score for a minute. I'm like, dude, where was your pitching, Matt? I was like cringing for you. I'm like, OMG! If it was a title fight, they would have stopped it.
Yeah, it was rough. And then Hagen Smith bounced back. He looked really good, but that game still went over in game 2. Ben Abelt pitched really well. That's the thing, is like you get 4 or 5 innings out of Hagen, gives up 1 or 2 runs. Same for Abelt. Cam Brown pitched decent. We kind of got after him early, but it was a 4-2 game, Arkansas, but you never really felt like, we're waiting on TCU to do something. The game ended 12-6. Like, I think through the 6th inning, it was 4-2. And then TCU struck again, and before you knew it, they were putting up football scores. So it's crazy. I would have to really like an under to bet an under in college baseball. I'm talking like Paul Skeens versus Rhett Lauder, where I know both these guys are going 7, 8, 9 innings before I'm like, all right, yeah, this is an underplay.
Well, we're here. We got one game, 5-4, first and third, and my eyes say 2 outs. So we still got hope for Virginia. Obviously, like you said, you still got 2 at-bats for Virginia, correct? Yeah.
Yes.
They're the home team.
Yep.
Yes. So you still got time. Matt, start us off with today. I got, like I said, the 4 games in front of me on Wager Talk. Duke, Virginia going on now. South Carolina, Florida, Oral Roberts, Oregon, TCU, Indiana State. And then obviously you guys have the other games as well. So, Matt, I'm going to let you start today's games, tomorrow's games, what, you might have teams winning the regionals, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
I'm going to break Q's heart again, but the Gamecocks, the theme is pitching, and South Carolina is better at pitching as far as a team, ERA, XFIP, Sierra, everything. And Florida's trending backwards in run differential. South Carolina's trending as an improvement. So I just think as hard as it's going to be for them to win in Gainesville, I think South Carolina could contend and keep it close enough to where if you get down to the bullpen game, I like the arms for South Carolina just a tad bit better than Florida. And you're getting a plus 125 price. So I back the Gamecocks there. And then same goes for Oral Roberts. Oregon, I think, is last out of the field of 16 in all pitching categories. this team just kind of lucked into the fact that Vanderbilt had to, for the lack of Vanderbilt beating Xavier and having their shot at taking on Oregon again. So you've got an Oregon team that's trending on the lower end. You've got a Oral Roberts team that I think is riding a 21-game win streak right now. You're going to give me plus 150, 140 on the series price and plus money today with their ace Jacob Hall going. I don't care who Oregon throws. I think it's probably going to be Logan Mercado. I think the Golden Eagles are the play.
So going back to South Carolina, Florida, you said 125. So you have South Carolina winning the series. Was that what you were saying?
Yes, I have them winning the series, and also they're correlated at this point. I think if you win game one, you're obviously in the driver's seat to win the series. But in some cases where there's a little chess going on with the pitching matchups, which we'll get to in the Stanford-Oregon series, I think James Hicks today, Brandon Sproat is also going to go. I think Florida wins with Hurston Waldrop. I don't care who, if it's probably Jack Mahoney. And then that game 3 is going to be a fun one. So I'm thinking South Carolina, Florida, and then they'll play for the series on that game 3.
On game 3. Q.
Yeah, I mean, I have, like he said, they kind of correlate. I have Florida money line tonight minus 145. And then I have them minus 139 for the super regional series price. I get Matt's points. I think this is a coin flip. I like what Florida did last week to battle out of the losers bracket. I thought they had really, really good starting pitching. Even the game they lost to Texas Tech, Brandon Sproat threw a hell of a game. I think he had 2 earned runs to really one guy. He made two bad pitches, 2 home runs. It happens. South Carolina can do that damage as well, but he pitches really well at home, just as Cags does and Hurston Waldrop. But they also have these guys named Ryan Slater and Cade Fisher in the bullpen that if these starter guys kind of get into some trouble, they've thrown, 1 earned run baseball over 5 to 7 innings. So you have confidence there. They can come out of the pen. They've done it all year. What Florida did last weekend, pitching wise, I think the starters had a 1.45 ERA. In the bullpen had a 2.08 ERA or something like that. So they're there and clicking at the right time. The question is, can the Florida bats kind of stay hot like they have all season? They kind of went cold towards the end of the SEC tournament into the last 2 games of last week. So it'll be interesting to see if those guys can keep the adjustments they've made, take the ball the other way, take what's given to you. If they can, then I think they'll beat a good South Carolina team. I also think there's unquantifiable stats. If you've listened to the show, you've heard me say that time and time again. South Carolina hosted Florida in April and swept. I think that's motivation for Kevin O'Sullivan and the Gators. I mean, they were embarrassed on the national stage, 2 top 5 teams. Now you get them at your home place. Conjure Family Ballpark is going to be packed. Florida baseball is a blue collar and a blue blood in this sport for a reason. And they're going to be pissed off. I think they're going to be focused. I guarantee you those losses were posted all over the locker room, things like that, kind of getting the right mindset. So I like Florida here. Matt is just firing me up, taking South Carolina. I hate when we're both on them because then typically my Gators lose or his Razorbacks lose. So I like a little adversity.
And something else to monitor with that series is the weather in Gainesville is not good. So if you get a cancellation tonight, they'll probably try to play a doubleheader tomorrow. And doubleheaders in college baseball always get weird.
They may or they may not.
Be wary of that. I hope they don't.
I've heard that they could push it Saturday, Sunday, Monday, since they've already got regional scheduled for that. But it's with the NCAA, Jeff, it's so hard to tell. And there's no rhyme or reason. So they could play a triple header tomorrow unjustifiably, and I would not be surprised.
So we get those covered. Q, TCU, Indiana State.
I think it's pretty clean, cut, and dry. But give me TCU. I know we've kind of relied on pitching. If you look at Cole Klecker's numbers, he does match up pretty well against Indiana State's best pitcher. I think any and all hope for Indiana State was to keep that super regional series in Terre Haute Obviously, they conceded that for a very, very respectful reason in the Special Olympics. And I gave credit on our show to TCU fan base for donating almost $30,000 to that. So it's a round of applause for them. But I think this is one of the series that goes against our pitching clause. I think TCU's bats are just too hot right now. And I don't think Indiana State's going to be a team to kind of bring them back down to earth. I think that would be somebody in Omaha, like a Tennessee, a Wake Forest, a LSU, Florida, or South Carolina. Just kind of more of your workhorse, your more dominant pitchings is what it's going to take. So I think TCU at minus 165 for the series price is actually pretty cheap from what they probably should be at home. I don't know if the books kind of adjusted that number or not, but I also have them tonight at minus 165 as well. I think they get it done.
Matt?
Yep. I second that. They had a plus 31 run differential over last weekend against Arkansas, and who else they beat? Arizona.
Yeah.
Yes, Indiana State, their pitching is better, but you're talking about a TCU team that is third in run differential over the last 2 weeks of college baseball. That indicates a very hot team. They're playing at home. They're playing against a Indiana State team that, hats off to them. They've had a great season. I didn't give them enough respect in the Terre Haute Regional. I thought Iowa would come out of that. Indiana State proved me wrong. I just think this is where they run out of gas.
I need to also give a shout out to Sean Alvarez, who was on earlier before you guys. Wanted to say happy Friday to Q and Matt. So shout out to Mr. Smooth as he was talking Belmont, and now we're talking bases. Got a guy on second there, one out. So there's still hope here. Still bottom of the eighth. We got time. So, all right, let's talk about the Iron, Matt. Let's talk about the SEC and all those other matchups coming up.
Well, unfortunately, they've pinned all the SEC opponents against each other except for Alabama, and then they did the same thing with Duke and Virginia in the ACC. But LSU, I think this is a pretty easy handicap. Sharpie and Paul Skeens as a winner Friday night or Saturday, whenever he goes, or Saturday's game one. I just don't think Kentucky has all of the pieces to contend with this red-hot Kentucky offense, and Ty Floyd's been decent lately. He's not great. Virginia just got the second out. And then I think what's the other SEC team? Oh, Alabama. Just said that. I just don't think Alabama is going to be able to slow down Wake Forest. I mean, you're talking about a Wake team that's number one in every pitching category in the country. And then Luke Holman's solid for the Crimson Tide, but run differential matters, I think. Over the last 10, over the last 20, Wake Forest is number one. I don't think anybody's beat Wake Forest. Of course, I didn't think anybody was going to beat Tennessee last year. Notre Dame knocked them off at this time. I would be very surprised if Alabama does it. I think they could get one, but I'm not really sure which pitcher they beat. Last weekend, you didn't even see Sean Sullivan throw because it was a 3-0 sweep for them with Keener, Louder, and Hartle. So it's going to be interesting to see. And then Tennessee is another one. They got the monkey off their back about being able to win on the road. They're going to Hattiesburg, much to the demise of a lot of Tennessee fans that wanted to be in Knoxville. Hattiesburg, small park in Pete Taylor Park. I don't think Tennessee is going to be bothered by it. I think the Clemson Stadium last weekend was going to be a tougher home field advantage than what Southern Miss is going to bring. So second in all pitching categories across the board. And over the last 20, they've got the number 3 run differential and a 5.75. So I think this Tennessee team is clicking at the right time, seem to have it figured out. So I laid it with Tennessee to come out of the Hattiesburg Super. And I think, what's their game tomorrow?
Yeah.
I haven't seen pitching rotations. I would assume they're going to hold off on Tanner Hall, but that's one to watch. I think Tanner Hall, they may be able to win. The problem is he gets 0 run support. Like Q said yesterday or whenever we did our show, that he's like the Jacob deGrom of college baseball. Like he could give you 9 solid innings and
With
it'd
a
be
loss.
0-0, and they'll go into the 10th and they'll give up a home run. So it's unfortunate for him. He's a hell of a competitor, and I just think Tennessee is going to be able to dominate him.
Q, thoughts?
I think you hit it well. I actually doubled down on LSU. I think Ty Floyd's pitched really well on the back end of his scheduled starts. So as Matt said, you pencil in Paul Skeens for a win. So it's really a best of 2 series off the jump. I think Ty Floyd gets that done. I think that could be one of the 2-0 series. I just don't think Kentucky can compete. I mean, this is a higher stakes series than what it was earlier this year, and they lost that series 2-1. They won that middle game. I don't think that happens this time. Tennessee, I think they're going to be irritated they didn't get the host spot. I think they're going to prove their point. We talked about it. Their pitching has not ever been a doubt for the entire season. It's been the hitting, and not even their athleticism or their ability. It's been mental. They figured it out. They beat a good Clemson team. They hit around on Caden Grice, one of the better two-way players of the game, good pitcher. This team is on fire, I think, and I think they're the real deal. I think they're a serious threat to win a College World Series now that they figured that out, and I think they win 2-0. I don't think Tanner Hall picks up that win. I don't think Southern Miss is going to be able to hit Andrew Lindsay, Chase Dolander, or Beam if it even gets to a Game 3. So I think it's pretty clear cut and dry. I think Wake Forest easily gets to Omaha. I know the number 1 curse is still looming around, but they drew Alabama. Alabama's had a great season, especially considering the drama they went through, but I think their run ends here. So we're going to cut the 30 for 30 segment short from a College World Series run. Wake Forest is too dominant. They have 4 number 1 pitchers on their team. To answer that question, if they do pick up a win, I think it'd be against Sean Sullivan. I think he's probably the worst out of Louder, Sullivan, and Hartle. But again, I think they're just going to be outmatched.
So we all looking at LSU, Wake Forest.
I was just going to say, isn't that just the greatest thing ever when your worst pitcher has a 2.61 ERA?
Yeah.
It's like, that's our worst guy.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's unreal.
So is it to me to say that the series with the most doubt is Texas and Stanford?
I think you could say Florida, South Carolina.
Yeah, not for me.
Okay.
I'd say Florida, South Carolina. I think Texas has the severe pitching advantage because I think Quinn Matthews and Lucas Gordon kind of cancel each other out. The difference is Texas is hitting the ball really well. That ball was flying out of the sunken diamond or whatever it's called up there in Stanford, Palo Alto. I think Texas can contend with them on offense, and they've got a better pitcher on their second day guy with LeBaron Johnson Jr. plus Tanner Witt, who's coming back from injury. I know Parker's got a 61.9% win probability for Stanford, and Stanford's pretty good at home. I like this Texas team. What they're doing here lately, they're second of the field of 16 in run differential. They've got the best team ERA and Sierra compared to Stanford by like a run and a half. So I'm going to rely on the pitching handicap, and I'm going to say the Longhorns. They may sweep this thing 2-0, especially with the news that Quinn Matthews is going to go tomorrow.
I think that's the most confusing series is how I would label Texas Stanford, because you just don't know what you're going to get out of both teams. I think the toughest series or the most coin flip would be Florida, South Carolina, but not for like a confusing or a doubt reason, because it's 2 heavyweight fighters in the ring. I mean, that's a, Holyfield Ali type fight, in my opinion, or a Holyfield Tyson.
What did Vegas open up the Stanford Texas series price at?
Stanford, Texas.
I think Texas was minus 105. Now they're plus 110. Okay. I don't remember what Stanford. I think Stanford was like minus 115.
Okay.
Yeah, Circa has, when we put the guide out 135. It was minus 135 Stanford plus 115 Texas.
Okay.
But according to our win probabilities, 61.9% Stanford, 38.1% Texas. As far as the win probability that's the closest, it was the Florida, South Carolina, 53 and 47.
Well, next week at this time, there'll be the final 8, correct?
There will.
Okay, and those games also start on Friday?
Yes.
Yep.
Jeff, I hope
All
I'm
right.
not with you next Friday, because if I'm not on the show, that means
that's
I'm in
right.
Omaha.
That's right. So if Florida wins, you're going to Omaha, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So, Matt, that means you're going to fly solo next week.
And if Virginia can come back and win this in the bottom of the ninth and Florida wins, they will play each other in the opening round in the College World Series. So Florida man up there is going to be torn.
I'm going to the. I was telling him I'm going to the UVA game tomorrow, so that game will definitely kind of hit home. You know, I'm loyal to UVA to an extent just because proximity, but Florida's obviously number one diehard. So I hate Jake Geloff next week if that's the matchup.
So we'll be down to the Elite 8 next week in Omaha. So again, everyone watching and listening, if Florida wins this weekend, Q will be in Omaha. Otherwise, we will have the 3 men in the box back next Friday at the same bat time as always. Q, final thoughts here as we get down to the Sweet 16. It's going to be an amazing weekend. Give someone a nugget, something, whether it's far-fetched or, just like something that they can hold on to, and we can circle back for next week.
You're gonna have to lay some juice this weekend, whether it's a series price or a individual game, because I mean, as we just walked through, the big dogs are typically coming out on top. The big dogs typically have the better pitching, as Matt alluded to, the 11-4 plus 8 units stat if you blindly followed our guide. So I know you're going to have to risk a lot to win. So it's just kind of be patient, follow us on Twitter, trust us, and we'll get you some wins.
Matt?
Mine would be situational handicapping. You've got to know the pitching matchups. We've hammered that home, but understand the feel. Like last weekend, TCU, Arkansas. I tweeted out, I think the night before the game, why is TCU plus 145? I get it from a numbers standpoint because Arkansas was supposed to win that regional, so they should be the favorite. But the ask of you're down pitching because now you've had to play an extra game than TCU. TCU is riding this wave of momentum off just beating your best pitcher 20-5. There was no way that TCU was going to lose that game. And hats off to Hagen Smith and everybody else that pitched their butts off. It just wasn't enough. Sometimes the best team doesn't win in baseball. We see it all the time in the MLB. But you've got to know the situation. You've got to see the matchups. And from there, you place a bet and hope you win. But I think you're going to see a lot of it, especially if some of these series comes down to game 3. It's going to be who has the depth, who can roll 5 or 6 pitchers out there and let them give their best 2-3 innings. I mean, we saw it last weekend with Quinn Matthews, Tanner Hall. These guys want to win. They want the ball. They're throwing 150 to 200 pitches a weekend because they want their team to win. And that's the one thing that you can't really handicap. But if you know the situation, you watch the games, you pay attention, you'll have a good feel for what team wants it more. So
Matt,
I'll leave it at that.
The scroll has been going the whole time for everyone here. I have actually had a lot of people reach out to me during the week. Hey, where can I get your picks? Where can I follow? And then I tell everyone, hey, go to their Twitter feed, go to the CBS Insider, go get the guide, go download the guide. But as we always do here, we close with you guys telling everyone where they can find each other's work. So, Matt, you can start it off.
I'm at Grissom Tweets and then at NCAA Insiders. And you can go to NCAAinsiders.com, download our super regional preview guide, and hopefully win you some money.
Q?
I'm at Q Millie. That's with 3 L's and 2 Y's. You can find me at NCAA Insiders as well as Notebook Wagering. I do another show there covering other sports. So I'm always around, whether I'm on Jeff's show, Matt and I's show, or my guy Smitty and I's show with a couple other guys up in Pittsburgh. So I'm all over Twitter. You'll find me.
And I'm going to say this open and honestly, wishing Florida, obviously, the best of luck this weekend. And if you do win and prevail, safest travels. We expect your Twitter feed to be blown up with pictures, live shots, and we'll be living through you, me and Matt, as we sit here next Friday at 2:00. How's that sound?
Love it. That sounds like a plan.
From myself, Jeff Dawson at EC Sports Invest, from Quentin Mills at Q Millie, and of course, Matt Grissom at Grissom Tweets. Go follow these guys, NCAA Insiders, Notebook Wager One. College baseball, Sweet 16, Elite 8 next week in Omaha. Cash some tickets. If you have any questions, go find these guys. They're the experts, not me. They're the experts. So behave yourselves. I'll be back around 4:30 with Riley Magnuson on the closing bell. We'll get everyone caught up to speed. I guess there's an NBA Finals Game 4 tonight in South Beach. We'll talk some MLB, and we'll go from there. Everyone, enjoy the afternoon. See you soon.